afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another exciting session of IIoT India Digital Connect series. DigiCon series is aimed at addressing the needs and challenges of the manufacturing industry in today's time and sharing the experiences and learnings within the industry. After two successful sessions, we are back with a topic that we can blatantly refer to as the elephant in the room, the much awaited discussion on Workforce 4.0. We'll be discussing about how do we redefine the 21st century workforce using IIoT, understanding the future job landscape for the manufacturing industry, considering that Industry 4.0 is now increasingly being applied to activities requiring intelligence and cognitive capabilities that not long ago were viewed as the exclusive domain of humans. Now, without much ado, I would like to go ahead and introduce our panelists. I want to start off with our moderator for today, Ms. Sujata Tilak, Managing Director, Ascent Intellimation, successful entrepreneur and technologist. Ms. Tilak is a thought leader in industrial IoT and convergence of industrial automation and information technology. She has led Ascent Intellimation as a leading provider of IIoT solutions. Ms. Tilak's focus is to help organizations recognize and embrace diverse ways in which manufacturing data can be beneficially used by various stakeholders. Thank you for joining us today. Next, we have Mr. Sunil David, who is the Regional Director IoT at AT&T. Mr. David has 26 years of experience in IoT, IT, telecom, and digital transformation, and is working on building a partner ecosystem for AT&T in the areas of IoT devices, platforms, and applications. Thank you for joining us today, Mr. David. Our next panelist is Professor Dr. Chandan Chowdhury, Associate Dean, Indian School of Business. He recently returned to academia after spending 17 years in corporate, joining the Indian School of Business as Executive Director to lead the Munjal Institute for Global Manufacturing and the Punj Lloyd Institute for Infrastructure Management. He is an Associate Dean and Practice Professor of Operations Management and Information Systems at ISB. Thank you for taking out time to join us today. Next, we have Mr. Ramesh Kumar, Head of Analytics and Center of Excellence at Tata Steel. Mr. Kumar is a result-oriented visionary leader with more than 14 years of experience in inspiring excellence, creating high-potential analytics team, and driving an Industry 4.0 transformation based on tested performance and innovation. He is currently driving a large-scale AI implementation in manufacturing across Tata Steel. He holds an extensive experience in supply chain, manufacturing, energy power added by IoT-based end-to-end analytics solution. Thank you for taking out time to join us today. Last but not the least, we have Mr. Ajay Tiwari, Connected Services Lead, Volvo Eicher Commercial Vehicles. He is taking care of open source, open standard enterprise architecture, IoT, IIoT deployments, partner integrations, etc. He has over a decade of experience in complex product design and deployments covering automotive, telecom, manufacturing, and has overseen IoT and IIoT value chains deployments ranging from device to data engineering. Thank you for taking out time to join us today. It is an honor to have industry veterans like all of you on the panel today. I now request our audience to take a very quick poll so that our panelists know you better and can streamline the discussion accordingly. The poll is on your screens right now. Scroll along and select the most appropriate option, and do not forget to submit your poll. In the meanwhile, I would like to tell you that we have received an enormous number of queries from all of you present in the audience. As panelists will address them during and after the plenary discussion. You are welcome to ask more questions via the Q&A chat function throughout. You can also choose to upvote a question that has already been asked by someone else, and it will help us to prioritize. Any questions which remain unanswered can be posted to our interchange platform, the link to which will be provided towards the end of the session. Few people are still left to submit the poll. All right. So here is a summary of what the audience thinks of this question. Okay, so 58% of our audience thinks that skilled production workers is the most challenging position to fill, whereas 37% of our audience thinks that the negative perception of manufacturing is the biggest barrier that they face while hiring new employees. Also, that technical skill is the most missing skill in the workforce, in the manufacturing workforce, and less business investment and product development has basically impacted the business the most. So before we proceed with our discussion for today, would you like to elaborate on this, Ms. Tilak? Over to you.
Okay, so yeah, thank you, Nitya, and a very good afternoon to all the attendees. It's really great seeing this very important subject being discussed and very well received by all the audience and who are eagerly waiting for this discussion. So the topic is redefining the 21st century workforce using IIoT or Workforce 4.0. Now, when we talk about this topic, I would like to start my comments drawing your attention to why this is happening right now, why IoT and many other technological innovations and advancements are taking place in last maybe 10 to 15 years. So there are three fundamental technologies that are shaping the world as we are having it today. Uh, and these three very, very fundamental technologies are the compute power, and all of you would have read about Moore's law at some point or the other, right? The Intel co-founder Gordon Moore in 1965 predicted that the number of transistors on an IC will double every 2 years and the cost will be reduced to half. And his law, believe it or not, has more or less followed what he predicted for first 10 years. Then he upgraded the prediction from 2 years to, I think, few more years, but still it's happening. And this tremendous amount of compute power is the fundamental technology that is driving all the different kinds of transformation in today's world. The second fundamental technology is the storage or the cloud technologies. Uh, Nowadays, we do not give a second thought to how much data we are uploading to the cloud. So it's a world with limited storage capabilities. Then the third is communications and networking. So this is the backbone of the internet, and all of us know that this is the technology which is powering all our applications today. And the last one, which is specific for IIoT or IoT, is the sensor technologies. Sensor technologies have made tremendous strides in last few years, and the costs have come down. And these four together are shaping today's digital transformation technology. So you talk about IoT, robotics, AI, machine learning, artificial intelligence, AR, VR, blockchain, whatever. This is all emanating from these fundamental technologies. And the rate of change is so high uh, that it's very difficult for people and even countries sometimes to keep pace with this. And hence, people who are part of the workforce are at a in a dilemma or are thinking, how do I fit in this new world? How do I make myself relevant? How do I change myself, adapt, advance, so that I belong to this new digital transformation world? And the current pandemic, if anything, has even further pushed us towards a digital world. Be it how we live, how we work, how we play, everything has gone digital suddenly because of the pandemic. So it has maybe taken away a few years, which would have taken for this situation, for this digital to progress. Now it is even further accelerated because of the current pandemic. Uh, so if I talk about the skills and if I talk about how do we go about the skill development or workforce 4.0 subject, I will give you an example which I have myself personally experienced. So the year was something around, I think, 2014 or 15, and I visited a auto component unit, manufacturing unit here in Pune. So I went to their machine shop where there were a number of CNC machines, all discrete machines. The parts were being moved from one machine to the other via trolleys. But what was interesting was on each of these machines, the operator had a logbook. So it was a big register, with some columns marked on that. In every production cycle, the operator was noting down certain values looking at the HMI. So about 10 to 12 parameters were being noted, some during the cycle and some at the end of the cycle. So at the end of every cycle, he used to take maybe 1 or 2 minutes noting down these parameters. And then at the end of the shift or at the end of the day, these registers would be sent to who but the data entry operators. And they would meticulously look at all those values and enter them in some Excel sheet. And this was used for traceability. And now we fast forward to today or maybe a few years down the line, we no more hear about data entry operators, right? That profession is all but vanished. Then we will no more hear about an operator having a logbook and writing something, because IoT has changed the way manufacturing happens. It is having profound impact on manufacturing. And because of that, uh, every single person working in the manufacturing setup is affected, or is affected today, or maybe will get affected in few years time. And it starts right from the operator who is operating a machine all the way up to the CEO of that company. Every single person has been impacted or will be impacted one way or the other. So that's the power, or that's the kind of scope we are talking about when we talk about IoT or Industry 4.0 and its impact on manufacturing. And obviously, all of us want to know, want to understand how it will impact me and how should I get prepared for it. So this discussion, I would at a high level break into two parts. One is the new workforce. The new workforce will be the engineers, the management people who are coming into the workforce. So for them, the changes now have to happen at their education level. So the curriculums have to become multidisciplinary. But at the same time, we should not forget that fundamental engineering and domain knowledge is extremely important. A lot of students, when they talk about IoT or when they talk about new technologies, digital transformation, they think that if they learn AI and ML, that's it. They don't have to know anything else. But that is, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, a complete misnomer. The the importance of the fundamental engineering or the domain knowledge is never going to go away. What you have to do is build on top of that all these new technology and new ways of interpreting the data and collecting the data. So once you are, let's say, a mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, metallurgy, chemical, whatever field you have chosen for yourself, you have to augment that with these new technologies, with understanding how the data is going to play more important role in everything, how industry 4.0 is going to make the manufacturing more efficient, more reliable, more quality oriented, and so on. So the courses have to be designed to augment the existing engineering and not to replace it. So there is a concept coming nowadays which is called digital engineer. And there are courses which are being designed for becoming a digital engineer. So these courses have to be at the postgraduate level, because as I said, fundamental engineering discipline knowledge is required, and on top of that you would have a digital engineer who is learning all the ropes of smart manufacturing. A few years ago we had this IT boom, right? In late 90s or early 2000s, we had this IT boom. Every engineer was going after the IT career. But now things are changing, and manufacturing is kind of becoming, if attractive or sexy. So a lot of engineers are looking at manufacturing as a possible career option where they think that they can work with cutting edge technologies in addition to the existing manufacturing practices. Uh, I am part of a voluntary organization called ISA, International Society of Automation. And ISA is a US based organization, mainly a standards organization. So we do a lot of work in trainings as well. So ISA has defined what is called as an automation competency model. And this model is defined by ISA and United States Department of Labor. And this is used as a reference by several universities for industrial automation courses or curriculum. And now this automation competency model is being augmented by adding what we are calling as a digital engineer and mapping a body of knowledge required for digital engineer on this automation competency model as a specific part of the automation competency model. So this work is going on for last, I think, 2-3 years within ISA and along with United States Department of Labor. And the whole idea is to provide all facets of what is needed by an automation engineer or by a digital engineer to succeed in the role that he or she is going to play in the organization. So the new workforce, I think, is a comparatively easy part. The difficult part is how to reinvent the existing workforce. And we all the time hear words like reskilling and upskilling and so on. So what is it exactly, and what exactly a person has to do, right? How do you reinvent? So I'm not going to talk about the skills themselves, what are the skills needed, and I will let the esteemed panel members talk about it. I'm going to talk about the mindset. So what is the first change that one has to do? You know, any existing person who has been working in the industry, say for last 10 years or so, the biggest change they have to do in their mindset is they have to accept data driven manufacturing. They have to realize, or they have to accept, that data is going to be the king, and data is going to be used in each and every decision. So there will be no decisions taken on intuition. I mean, intuition still will play important part. I'm not saying it is to be thrown away, but it has to be augmented by the data. So they have to go from, if I may call it, physical to digital, right? All these years, IT was treated as an outsider on shop floors. If you go to the shop floor of any organization, IT had little role to play there. So IT now has become a key stakeholder on the shop floor as well, right? Uh, Most of the vendor interactions used to be brick and mortar kind for the shop floor people. Now point and click is coming on the shop floor. So all these changes are not in a specific area, but they are across all areas. So far, people used to decide the stuff, and now the data is going to start taking away that job, and people's role is going to be to analyze the data or to understand what the data is saying and then decide on several things. So this is a huge change for the existing workforce, and how to manage this effectively is one of the key challenges that the managers in manufacturing are facing in this transformation, and they are using different means of doing it. There is one more last point which I would like to make before I hand it over to my panelists. A new paradigm that has to be understood and embraced by manufacturing shop floor people, or in general manufacturing people, is the ecosystem paradigm. When we think about industrial IoT or industry 4.0, there are so many parts of it, so many aspects of it, that it's not that you start an industry 4.0 initiative, you write a nice RFP, call for quotations, select a vendor, and you are done. It's not that simple, right? you have to look at so many aspects. It starts with the edge hardware, what kind of network, what kind of connectivity, what kind of communication backbone, which cloud, which platform, which application, and how, what data to acquire, how to analyze the data, and so many things. And in each of these steps, end users or manufacturing companies representatives are critical part of this ecosystem. They have to participate in each and every step, and their participation starts right from the concept to the completion. And even after that, means even after you say that okay, the system is deployed and I am getting the required data and I am getting some analytics and some dashboards and reports and whatnot, it doesn't end there. There has to be continuous improvement in this system. There has to be a continuous tweaks and fine tuning, so that you get more and more benefits out of it. And this paradigm, and when you are doing this, you have to work with your partners. It's not any single company who will do all. So this ecosystem paradigm, I think, is another important change which has to happen in people's way of thinking, in people's way of working. So this is what I had to say. And now I will, I have a really good panel today. We have Dr. Chandan Chowdhury from ISB, so he's from the academics. Then we have Ajay Tiwari from Volvo Eicher commercial vehicles, and Ramesh Kumar from Tata Steel. So both of them represent manufacturing companies, the end users. But here also Ajay represents the discrete manufacturing and Ramesh the process. So we have variation even amongst them. And then last but not the least, we have Sunil David. He's from AT&T, and telecom being the backbone of this whole IoT stuff. He and his company have a very important role to play in this whole thing. So now I request Dr. Chandan Chowdhury to share his views with the participants. Thank you.
Good afternoon to all of you. Thank you, Sujata. So what I'm planning to do is share some of my thoughts on the topic of workforce of the future. And what I'm going to do is share with you my understanding about impact of Industry 4.0 on the future of work. We will discuss based on some of our recent research, what do we see are the market trends and demand for digital continuity, and how does Industry 4.0 help in such journey. We'll also discuss about this concept of digital twin. I saw some of the questions which were raised by participants. They wanted to know what's digital twin, how does it help companies, and in general, we'll also talk about, we know a lot of discussion happening on job gain and job loss. We'll talk about what's happening with female labor force participation rate. And while we'll have discussion in the global context, but we'll keep our focus primarily on India, and then we'll sum up our what you call the takeaways. Now, one of the things I wanted to mention is we conducted a study where we wanted to understand India's readiness for Industry 4.0. We looked at what kind of skills are required, what are the new market trends, what are the new demands of customers, and I will report today some of our findings with respect to the textile industry. Now, the trend that we are seeing, one of them is customers want suppliers to have commitment to sustainability. This also means they want commitment to traceability. We must know, what kind of input material do we use? Do we have commitment to green? Are we really adhering to the local laws and international laws if you're exporting. And companies want to have visibility on your manufacturing processes, which means that companies want to have understanding of what's happening within your factory. So that is also an interesting challenge, and it really involves use of technology. We also see new products, demand of new products. For example, in textile industry, we see demand of antimicrobial and self-healing products. So we also see demands for new products coming up. Now, one of the things that I wanted to mention, especially in the context of COVID, people have started realizing the importance of digital value chain, why we need to connect all members of the value chain. So that I see appreciation of that has actually gone up. And people have started realizing the importance of digital innovation platform. People have also realized it's not enough if we automate, we have to transform our business. So one of the things that we are seeing, first of all, people are realizing that we have to increase our customer centricity. We've got to make our organization agile. People have realized is very, very important to increase productivity of organization. One important aspect is appreciation about why we need to disrupt our own business model and innovate new business model to be competitive is another aspect that we see a lot of appreciation. And digital continuity across the value chain, right from the way you source materials to the way you deliver your goods, including reverse logistics. All this would actually involve connected products, connected services, and use of Internet of Things. Let's spend a minute on the concept of digital twin. If we want to see real improvement, it will be extremely important that we understand it is not enough if we do our transaction in the physical world. We got to leverage the virtual world. People are talking about if you have a factory, create the digital replica of the factory. If you have a product, create the digital replica of the product. And your digital twin would actually help to improve your physical twin, physical product. So if you're selling a product, you ensure that you retain the digital twin. And your digital twin help you to understand the performance of your physical product. And you can actually improve your physical product by simulating performance on the digital twin. One of the things I wanted to mention is that if you look at the future of jobs, we recently did an analysis of 10 years of recruitment data. And we have observed that even the traditional roles are getting disrupted. Even if you look at roles like finance, operations, marketing, you find technology enablement has gone up. Especially in e-commerce, you find new roles are coming up. The roles of product management. You see on the graph that from 2014, we actually see the role of product manager increasing, right? So the roles are getting really changed. And the new roles which are emerging are on analytics. If you have knowledge on IoT or cybersecurity, big data, artificial intelligence, your demand in the market is higher. One of the aspects which is very important to understand, especially countries like India, is the female labor force participation rate. So if you look at female labor force participation rate in our country has been declining since 2005, right? Among the G20 country today, India is the lowest. It's only at 20.332%, which is, if you compare with worldwide statistics is 46%. Now, I wanted to share with you, our study shows that skilling can improve employability. Our study also shows that women given an opportunity can do better in certification, in skilling, and also in securing job. But for the same job, women are paid lesser. We did a study to really understand how much is the understanding of uh, this digital continuity, artificial intelligence in corporate. Our study shows that the best company that we came across when it came to textile, in the context of digital continuity, the score was just 15.8%. To sum up, I would like to say that Internet of Things and cloud will disrupt the future of work. We need to reskill our existing workforce. Female labor force participation rate is declining in countries like India. We need to do something about it. Uh, Other aspect is government, policymakers, society, and corporate need to work hard to reduce the gender gap in jobs and salaries. And I think large-scale skilling and reskilling is required to prepare our citizens for the future work. So that's the takeaway. Thank you very much. Over to Sujata.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dr. Chandan, for your views. Now I request Ajay to share his views.
Thank you, Sujata. Yeah, pretty enlightening, aspects, especially from the female skills, which Dr. Chandan has shared. So I'm basically going to refer to a deck which I believe host must have shared on the chat. So what we're going to talk about is that what's happening right now is a continuum of 3 W's. Sujata talked about 3 P's. I think what's happening is 3 W's. So what are these 3 W's? One is work. The second W stands for workforce, and third is workplace. Now these 3 all are changing in a very quick manner. I mean, of course, what has happened because of COVID situation, the pace has really accelerated, and the other panelists have talked about it. But I would like to briefly touch about these 3 aspects and how it is changing the need of the skills, how it's changing the organization strategy. For example, I belong to Volvo, Eicher commercial vehicles. So we have multiple aspects. We are a manufacturing organization with the sprawling landscape where we manufacturing, right from nut and bolts to the finished trucks and buses, finished heavy duty trucks and buses. So there is a whole spectrum of product which we produce. As well, we also sell them. So we have a very large retail landscape, dealerships spread across India. So of course, the kind of workforce which we have is a mix from the corporate employees, the sales employees, to the typical shop floor employees, some of them on roll, some of them off roll. And we basically, we have a very unique position because we are running our plants from Madhya Pradesh, MP, and Indore. In and around Indore, we have got close to 7 plants. So the kind of skills availability which is there in that area is something which we always keep in mind. So for us, upskilling is even more important. The reason being, we know that the kind of talent which you're going to get in a tier 2 or tier 3 city is not going to be the same. Now coming back to the work, so what is happening? So what we are constantly evaluating in the organization is that what more work we can automate, because that's the way it should be. The second aspect is what kind of work, because maybe the same work which let's say 2 people were doing, if I am able to get it done from, let's say, automation, maybe I can put those 2 resources in some other quality work. Let's say somebody mentioned analytics. Absolutely. Can we upskill them? Can we at least try to upskill them? The second aspect is workforce. Who can do the work? So basically, if I have got a shop floor work, which is the right person who can do this kind of work? So there are a lot of interesting concepts which COVID has thrown to the world. So there used to be outsourcing contracts in which we used to outsource some of the works to some of the contractors, some of the system integrators. But what we are finding out that there are a lot of people who are going to get into functional outsourcing. For example, let's say if as an organization, I am an MP and I'm not getting the kind of skill set which I require. So I may go for industrial IoT kind of outsourcing, in which I will get a person who's, let's say, sitting in Bangalore, and that person can actually do the job. Because why it's even more possible, because COVID situation has again thrown these kind of remote access, and with telecom and broadband and optical fiber spread across India, I think it's even more possible right now to do this kind of work. The third thing is workplace. There is the work done. With the what's happening is that earlier again there's a lot of, if we break down the kind of activities in typical manufacturing life cycle we do, what we used to have to, we always used to prefer doing all the work from a common location. That's where a plant comes into the picture. But what's happening, for example, now a lot of designing, a lot of simulation, a lot of validation activities can actually be done on cloud. If we can do it cloud, we don't need really my designers to be co-located at my plant. So maybe I can get it done in some other location. So again, these three aspects along with the various industry trends is basically shaping organization strategy, and Volvo Eicher is constantly evaluating our strategy on these three pillars. Now there are other very interesting aspects which are also happening. For example, what is happening is that because of manufacturing, global manufacturing slowdown, and with China especially, is bearing the brunt, and I would say rightly so, because of the COVID situation. India has been looked as a next global manufacturing hub. So for manufacturing companies, it's a very good opportunity that we can actually not only produce for ourselves, we can actually produce for the world. In fact, we are already doing it. For example, a lot of our products, like our powertrain, our engine, our transmission, in fact, some of our vehicles, we actually give it back to Volvo, and Volvo sells them the same product in markets like Japan, and some of these engines are actually used in Europe itself. So means that we can actually expand the same, and the same model can be implemented in which other people can also use our manufacturing facilities. Then of course there's automation, the AI ML, which is on the rise, and again we have the right. We have a very unique opportunity, because the kind of skills, the kind of engineering colleges, the kind of ITIs which we have put in place, with government also pushing Skill India. So I believe that there's a right kind of skill which is available, provided of course we need to give them the right specialized point courses. And of course, there is an increasing amount of digital adoption with payments, UPI, wallets, etc., which is gaining the core. Now, moving ahead here, so what are the typical imperatives for the organization and the employee? So I'm not going to talk about the worker and workplace. I'm going to talk about the worker. Worker here means a person who is either has joined my organization or who is basically on the verge of joining. That's the kind of worker we are now looking for hiring in the organization, because the nature of work has changed. So there's a term called millennial workforce, because now millennial workforce have new attitudes, new expectations, and new ways of working. So we need to find a very integrated talent management practice, and we should look we are actually looking forward to doing away with concept of degrees. Can we actually not hire people, let's say for engineering, can we actually hire people with specialized courses, specialized skills like AI, ML, or somebody said digital engineer. So those kind of skills can we hire. The next is we're looking at is that what is the driver for change. So there's a concept called gig economy which is gaining the foreground. The reason why we are saying that? Because there's a constant need for the people to really focus on this freelancing. Now, freelancing is a concept which is taken to next level, which is gig economy, in which people with very specialized, for example, there could be a person who specializes in paint job, the person who is specialized in welding job. Those kind of people will be providing their services while sitting at their location. They will have to travel, but they will be doing that part and then doing away. Now, how do we integrate it into our complete manufacturing value chain? We basically will be able to do that because of kind of PLM, the product lifecycle management platform, which we have built inside our organization. So we are able to integrate those workforce seamlessly by because the kind of tools and the platforms, the horizontal platforms which we have built in our manufacturing line. Now, I'll just jump to a key aspect which I am specifically focusing on, that how can we actually democratize this industrial IoT implementation inside an organization. The reason and how can we use open source, open standard. Now, right, why I'm using this open source, open standard as a technology? Because it helps me build a scalable model. I am not tying myself to a technology which may become obsolete in 2 years, 3 years. I'm choosing those technologies on the standards which are time and tested, which is widely accepted by the community, and which can be taught at a very cost efficient manner to my workforce, because upskilling costs money and time. So I need to choose a technology, and my employees and my prospective employees need to understand those technologies so that those technologies and skills are transferable to ECV. Now, coming back, so skills alignment, of course, will not happen overnight, and we understand that. So what is happening is that there is a 4.2 analytical journey, which as an organization we are embarked on, in which we are making sure that all my major workforce is basically being taught on analytics, because we are getting into discrete manufacturing, data-driven manufacturing. Everyone should have a basic level of analytics knowledge. Now, of course, I don't expect my shop floor workers or my designers or my manufacturing operations person to know what is predictive analytics, prescriptive analytics. No, but they should know that the kind of data which is being captured from those machines, those sensors, why is it so important? Sujata mentioned that actually there was a time that IT was looked as a pure play backend provider, but now is not the case. Now we are part of all the cross-functional teams. We are providing them the analytics. Our data engineers, our data scientists are working in tandem with my shop floor workers. They understand why this sensor needs to be chosen, how this sensor should be installed, and all those kind of standardization which is going ahead. Now, I'm just ending my skills mapping to the industrial IoT architecture. So this I am referring to a IRA recommended architecture, and what we are saying is that there are aspects. So basically, in a typical technical terminology, there are various tiers. There's an edge tier. In edge, there are typical device management, switches, industrial IoT gateways. They are basically installed at the edge. Then the access network talks about how this data will be piped into a platform on cloud. And then the third aspect is that basically how we are going to build engineering on top of it. And the fourth one is basically talks about how that can be made available to different people. And the last one is basically how the data crunching will happen. How will make sense of data which will be captured at the edge. Now that's where our data engineering and data science capabilities are being talked about. So every edge, every layer will require different kind of skills, and it's paramount that all the engineering colleges or the ITIs should upskill these kind of people so that we can actually choose right kind of skill depending upon the right kind of tier in terms of my industrial IoT implementation. So I think that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ajay. I think you have made some very interesting points, and I will come back to you regarding the functional outsourcing which you mentioned during your talk. Now we move on to the backbone of all this IoT gamut, and I invite Sunil David from AT&T to share his views. Sunil, over to you.
Thank you, Sujata, and I would like to thank 𝐭𝐞𝐲𝐬𝐧𝐠 for giving me the opportunity to be part of this panel. Firstly, I would want to share that every function within a manufacturing organization has technology fused into it, right? So I just want to first talk about that before I delve into the soft skills and give a completely different dimension, because soft skills obviously would have to complement the digital skills. And I'm only sharing based on my experiences dealing with manufacturing companies and also dealing with a lot of my colleagues, speaking to them who are in the manufacturing industry. As I mentioned, technology is fused into every function within a manufacturing organization, right? So I think it's very important for those working in a manufacturing organization, especially for the non-techies, to also realize the need for them to work very closely with technology. And just look at HR for an example, right? So today, HR functions would need AI perhaps to make the right hiring decision. Somebody working in the shop floor would perhaps need to work with the robo, right? So you must have heard of the word called cobot. So collaborative robots, right? So man working with machine, this whole paradigm about collaborative working. Even for somebody in sales, marketing, they would need a lot of data before they actually can go and target their customers. Sujata talked about data-driven manufacturing. So I think the emphasis on data. How do you use the data, from a sales and marketing perspective, so that you are able to take that and able to offer products and services that a customer wants? Targeted advertising, targeted marketing, targeted selling, right? So I think that's very important. And there's this old cliche which says technology enables business. So I would say business is technology today, because I don't think if technology was there, I don't think the businesses today would have been able to react to COVID, and neither they would have been able to recover, right? So perhaps many of them are in the recovery stage. So that's my initial comments. Now, just to add a different dimension to this whole discussion. So while Dr. Chandan talked about all the digital skills that are needed, I wanted to emphasize a little more on the soft skills, because those are very, very important in context of skilling of workforce. First thing which I wanted to talk about is this whole adaptability, the need for people, irrespective of the age, irrespective of function they represent, to adapt to the new COVID situation. It wasn't easy for any of us, I'm sure, because it was completely unprecedented. I don't think anyone would have anticipated a situation like this, where we are locked down for a few months, working from home. So one is adapting to this. Secondly, also, I think especially those in the manufacturing industry, to adapt to perhaps a future reality where you'll probably have gig jobs. I talked about the gig economy. I was just reading a few days back, Aon actually have predicted that manufacturing industry will adopt more gig workers in the future, as opposed to what it is today. So I think the need for them to realize that, don't be confined to just that 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 kind of a work environment. Be open and flexible to taking up those gig kind of roles, flexible work hours. Secondly, critical thinking. I think we must have heard about this, but I think the need for people to realize we are bombarded with so much of data. And how do you analyze all that data? And, the reason is that we shouldn't be forming a judgment so quickly. We are so bombarded with a lot of data. How do you analyze it and take the right decision, right? So this whole dimension about critical thinking would apply for every function. Thirdly, the lifelong learning. We talk about skilling, and I think this is something which is applicable for every function, for everyone, whatever role they are. The attitude of learning something. I don't think anyone can say that, okay, I've learned something, maybe I don't think I'll need to learn maybe a year or two later. I think one has to have that attitude of being in that lifelong learning mode. And I'll just give you my own example. So while I have 26 years of experience in the industry, I've just signed up for a course which CI and IIT Madras have launched. It's a course on data science and Python programming. So while I'm not a techie, I do understand technology, but I felt that I needed to understand the nuances of AI. Python is a fundamental programming language which is used to build AI applications. So I felt the need for that. So I think there's no limit to learning. I think the need is to constantly learn, unlearn what is not relevant, and learn what is relevant. Other thing is the importance of teamwork and collaboration, especially in a COVID situation like this. Now, Sujata talked about an ecosystem, right? I think the need for people to collaborate within a manufacturing ecosystem. Even for us, for people, the need for us to constantly be in touch with people. I think we need that collaboration. And I think COVID has exacerbated that, the need for constantly being in touch. How do you collaborate? The other important element which I wanted to highlight is being more creative, right? So I don't think the old ways of working would help today. We need to come up with new ways of working. So I think human skills will obviously be far more important now. The ability to be more creative, finding new ways of doing things. And in this regard, I wanted to bring in the dimension of design thinking. You must have heard of this concept called design thinking, where you try to find new ways of trying to solve a problem, right? So these are important skills that I wanted to highlight. Now, talking about skilling and talking about learning, I just wanted to bring in this point about how the need to keep on the lookout for the various programs that are launched by various industry bodies. And I wanted to share about one particular program which NASSCOM have launched. NASSCOM, as you know, is India's leading IT industry body. And they actually launched a program for women. It's called Women Wizards Rule Tech. And the whole initiative was to skill women in digital space. So while it was initially targeted to the IT and BPO companies, so the companies would have to register for it. And within the company, they can figure out how many leaders would need to enroll for the program. And they've identified about 6 or 7 areas, AI, machine learning, cybersecurity, and all that, IoT. So I'm actually enrolled as one of the IoT tech mentors, and I'm a mentor for the NASSCOM for this particular initiative. And I've done 2 programs so far for about 300 odd women on IoT foundations and basics and all that stuff. So NASSCOM is taking that initiative to skill women in the digital space, making sure that they become digital leaders of the future. And I think what is going to be very, very important is to, create and incentivize women to also look at non-IT companies. Sujata talked about, how do you make manufacturing sexy, right? So there are a lot more jobs that are being created now in manufacturing, especially when you're talking about data-driven decision making. There'll be a lot more job opportunities, and we'll probably see more women coming into manufacturing. So while NASSCOM has this initiative to, skill women in digital, you have a number of other industry bodies coming up with various programs. So, CIS, they have programs to skill in Industry 4.0. NASSCOM again wanted to bring another example of how they've, it's a METI initiative, Ministry of IT and IT Electronics. They have an initiative called INDIC. It's called Industry Digital Innovation Consortium. And what they're trying to do is, the whole objective is to collaborate with other players to build an ecosystem focused on Industry 4.0. So they're trying to build a collaborative ecosystem where they can get startups and MSMEs part of it, talent and skills groups part of it, industry bodies part of it, government part of it. And I think, and they'll also be launching programs where they can skill people in the area of digital, right? So my only submission to those who are here attending this virtually is, it's very important to keep a watch on all these programs. I think these are good initiatives where you can learn from, experts, while you may not be able to attend physical events, which probably will not occur for the next 7-8 months, but make sure that you keep looking out for some very good events. It's always nice to get different perspectives, connect with people, and I think there are enough opportunities for them today now. So this is what I would suggest. Digital skills obviously important, with Dr. Chandan touched upon, but complement that with the soft skills. I think that holistic development is what is really needed if you really want to really make a mark in life and grow. Thank you. Thank you, Sujata.
Thanks a lot, Sunil. And you mentioned about a lot of different programs being, taken up by various organizations. And one key point which you mentioned, that one has to constantly keep learning. There is no age bar for, learning new things, or maybe unlearning some of the things which we have learned previously. And I think that point is very relevant in this new digital transformation era. Now we will request Mr. Ramesh Kumar from Tata Steel to share his views. For everybody's reference, Tata Steel is one of the participants, or one of the, or I would say only Indian company in the digital lighthouse network, right? So that means they are the pioneers in this digital transformation field in India. So let's hear from Mr. Ramesh Kumar as to how his perspective on Workforce 4.0. You are mute, Ramesh. Please unmute.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes. Please go. Yeah.
Okay. So my name is Ramesh, and as you heard, I'm heading analytics practice for Tata Steel. So this is a pretty much part of the digital transformation. And as Sujata has explained, we have attained the status of lighthouse for one of our plant based out of Kalinganagar, and that's the only plant in India to get that status from the World Economic Forum. So we had people talking about Dr. Chandra on the digital initiative and lots of Sunil talked about the NASCOM, then Ajay talked about lots of the functional stuff on the IoT. But let me tell you, I can tell you how does the IoT feels basically. So that's experience I have got while working on it right from the bottom. And workforce, which is the theme of this subject, is pretty much decide the success of any IoT initiative across the industry, whether it's a process industry, there is a auto industry, or any other type of the industry, retail. But in our case, I think it's pretty much prominent because we are dealing with almost, I would say, that hundred thousands of the sensors deployed across the plant, and some of them are actually working in a very harsh conditions, like a temperature of more than 1000 degrees, 1500 degrees centigrade. So dealing with the IoT in such kind of the scenario is like you are never sure that what your sensor is giving you the data. You need to have a very robust system of the sensor audit. So looking into the kind of the people, you will need to make this kind of the program successful, especially in a manufacturing process industries, right from the operator to the guy who basically is writing the and designing the artificial AI codes or the machine learning and deep learning code in my department. So it's purely bottoms up approach. If you go from the top, at the bottom, it will fail 110%. That I can assure you. Okay, so if you think, I mean, who has got the stake in the entire spectrum, I would say whether you are an ITI guy or you are an IIT guy. So both are equally important. So to me, I think the ITI guy operator is more important because whatever I built using my 3 months, 4 months effort, if he doesn't use it or if he refuses to use it because his old habit of doing the conventional stuff, he finds it more comfortable, your all effort is gone. So building the team, a cross-functional team basically, which involves the people from right from the operator, then you have your project management team, IT projects team, including the vice president of that particular verticals. So it has to be a very tight sync. Everybody has to work. Whether it's the operator or vice president, doesn't matter at all, because it has to go and qualify at the bottom. So it's like that. Okay. So coming back to the, I mean, what kind of the strategy you need to have, because I have learned over, I mean, couple of the years and now actually implementing since last more than 2 years at Tata Steel. So there are a couple of things which are basically underlying at which you can build up your pillars of the IoT. So first thing, your IoT architecture, it should be in such a way that you should be able to scale up. Scaling up means if you are deploying something for a one similar machines, it should be well suited to deploy across the similar kind of the machines, across the plant, even the other locations. So if I say the similar kind of the skill is required in Jamshedpur plant, my other Kalinganagar plant, or the two plant which we have newly acquired, Usha Martin and the Bhushan of Steel, and my other plants in the Singapore and the Europe, that should also be very easily able to deploy for the similar, because steel making, iron making as a process or the company doesn't change much. So anything which you build, it should be Your architecture should be so much flexible that it should accommodate the variation in the process across. So that is the one. Second thing is your capability building. So the capability building is a very strong focus because the employee which learned the basic of the new digital use cases and a smooth and efficient way of implementing them is the key. So we have launched the program before we actually went into the implementation through the AI and the intelligence built over the complete architecture of the cloud. We have started basically acquainting people and training people right from the bottom. We call it the Marvel programs. So it takes you through the basic of the digital, basic of the analytics, how it is recorded. Because when I go and talk to my operator, he should understand what I'm talking. If I'm talking about, I will give you a prediction which is based on the machine learning, and that is 90% closer to your decision-making system. If he doesn't know what is ML, I mean, ML is not the ML understanding as a whole, but he should understand what is the capability of the analytics with respect to the data. And most important is your data itself, of which the guy who is basically working at the bottom, he is the most aware guy. Because most of the time, a new engineer getting into the manufacturing, coming from the top colleges and having or experience of 4 or 5 years, maybe Microsoft, Google, and other tier 1 companies. So they are used to working in the data. It's like very sanitized data. They pick the data from the retail, pharmaceuticals, build the multiple layer neuron, the neural network kind of and the deep learning kind of the model, and it actually works very well in their kind of the organizations. But when you come to the actual manufacturing, sometimes you get into the trap of the unknown. So you don't know what you have missed, and you build the model. And the model doesn't go beyond 75% accuracy, and your operator says, I can do better than what your model suggests. Then basically you need to take help of that guy who have been operating the process and the machine since lastly couple of the decades. So he knows what we're missing out. Maybe we do not have the system to measure it right now. We visually looking at it. We have got the quality sensor. It's getting the output from the machine. It's pretty much manual, which is just taking it and make a decision. But if the decisions would match it, your innovation.
Ramesh, I think we are having some problem hearing you. No, your voice is completely garbled. Ramesh, can you hear me? Yeah, your voice is completely garbled. Did anything change in your setup like few seconds ago? No, sorry, we cannot hear you at all. That's really unfortunate. I think. Okay, so we will give Ramesh maybe a few minutes to check what's wrong, and if he comes back, we can hear him. Then, you can continue. Sorry about that, but I think the show should go on. Show must go on. So thanks Ramesh, and you made a very interesting point related to your operator being the kind of the most important entity, because if he doesn't accept your new initiatives, then they will have no effect. So bottom up is what you mentioned, and I think that is relevant for most manufacturing companies, and this is and it comes through your experience, so this is very valuable. So thanks to all the panelists for sharing their views. Now we will move to the panel discussion. and then that will be followed by audience question and answers. We already have quite a few questions in the Q&A box, but first let's start with the panel discussion. And my first question is to Ajay. So Ajay, you mentioned that India is becoming, or it's going to become, the next manufacturing hub as a effect of COVID and a lot of manufacturing moving out of China. So how do we prepare for it? If you have any thoughts on this, please share them.
So I think the right example, we can draw it, parallel with what happened with IT outsourcing, right?
Mm-hmm.
IT outsourcing, almost 3 decades back, started with a lot of parallel phenomena. There was availability of skill force. There was availability of English-speaking workforce. There was technical education available across India, and the moment the outsourcing started scaling up in India, the supply of engineers or MCAs, or in some instances BCAs also started scaling up. So there was a constant demand and there was a constant supply. There was never a problem of supplying of quality IT workers, so to say. Now, if we draw a balance here in manufacturing, of course, it's not as simple as that. So we need to have all 3 P's, as you already said. You need to process, you need to have the right product. And a lot of organizations are handling it in a different manner. Our manufacturing, especially, so again, manufacturing can be, it's not that all kind of manufacturing outsourcing can happen in India. There has to be some aspect which we know how to do it. I think in automobile, we are doing pretty good job already. A lot of on automotive industry, India is already a outsourcing hub. A lot of European and Southeast Asian countries, for them India is already a hub. So right. I think that's a low hanging fruit, I would say. So that market should be captured quickly. But the sheer the advantage of automotive manufacturing is that it has a very long value chain. It has a spiral effect, because as I said, a typical diesel powertrain involves, I don't know, more than 1,000 parts, which is putting a simple. Yes, in EV, the story is different, but EV is still some time away. But the diesel powertrain will remain as it is because of the commercial vehicle and the construction equipment as an industry will remain strong. So that's the manufacturing part. How can we get ready? There are a lot of organizations are doing multiple things. Investing in the R&D facility and investing in the manufacturing processes itself. Now that's where the industrial IoT plays a very important role. I can give you an example that we last year we started a new plant, new manufacturing facility in Bhopal. Now, of course, one of the things which we proactively did was that all my equipment, all my manufacturing line, assembly line equipment are already Industry 4.0 ready. In the sense that I just need to plug in my devices and I should be able to start getting data. And we also we went on to extend that we standardize the data which we are going to get from the these machines, which was not the case earlier. Earlier, of course, there was a machine which was fitted. There was a PLC. We had to retrofit our sensors. Those sensors had a different make. Different make had different values. Different sensor required different calibration. As Ramesh just pointed out, it's not as simple as that. It's not like a GPS data that it's going to give you the accurate result. The result varies from plant location to location. Then there is an issue of Wi-Fi in a shop floor because it's a sprawling campus. You can't really put an access point at every location. Now, of course, there are technologies like Sunil knows about pretty well. There are technologies like LoRa. Then there's technologies like NB-IoT, etc. Those can be used. So there is that also needs to be looked upon. All these part of Industry 4.0 because this will give us the data. And this will also give us the data points which we can show to the world that, hey, my manufacturing is doing better because my OE is better, my MTTR rate is better, my quality is better because I'm able to capture the data. Otherwise, it's anecdotal, right? We say I have a better quality of product, but how do you quantify it? So that's why it's very important that we start putting the data into the public domain, that we actually mean business. And the third one is the skills, which I talked about. The colleges, the institutions, already a lot of government, has taken the initiative on upskilling the manufacturing workers. That has to go. I mean, there's no other way. One of the reason why I'm saying that India could be manufacturing hub, global manufacturing hub, is because of the availability of labor at a very cost-effective manner. I do not want to use the word called cheap labor, but the cost is very important aspect in manufacturing. That's where China scores very heavily currently.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Ajay, for the detailed insights into that. Sunil, you talked about gig manufacturing, and Ajay also talked about functional outsourcing. What are the challenges that you see in this gig economy or this gig manufacturing, if it was to become a reality in the future? How does one independent manufacturer or whatever functional expert prepare for this kind of thing?
I think one challenge, Sujata, might be cultural alignment, because the fact that he's a gig worker, he's not on roles of an organization. How does he align himself to the culture of that organization? Because the culture is so important. So I think that will be one big challenge for any gig worker, or even for that organization, in terms of how we can, get the best out of that person, Sujata. So I think that is an important aspect to look at. And also, I would also say, depending on the function, to what extent, you can kind of create a compensation model that will be attractive to them, because there are the different models that are available from a gig perspective. Some are based on outcomes, some are fixed hours. Right. So I think it also depends on how do you arrive at that, something which is acceptable to him. India, traditionally, we're not a gig economy. I mean, it'll take a while before we get there, but how do you arrive at that? I think that is also a challenge. It varies from organization to organization, individual to individual. What will be acceptable to me might be not acceptable to somebody else. So that could be also another important aspect to look at.
So you are essentially saying technology is not going to be a big challenge, but syncing up other aspects is what will decide whether it is successful or not, right?
All things being equal, assuming that he has the tech skills, he has.
Of course, that is to be, that's a given, right? That's an imperative, that tech skills are existing. Now my next question is for Dr. Chandan. So our education system, I mean, typically Indian education system does not do full justice in creating inquisitive and curious minds, we are taught in a different fashion. But now we heard all the panelists that for IIoT or any new innovative workplace or innovative environment, it is very, very essential to have these qualities. So how do organizations or institutes like ISB and IITs and other institutes prepare students to shed their inhibitions and become inquisitive and curious? Can you unmute, please? No, we can't hear you, Dr. Chandan.
Now?
Now it is, we can.
Yeah. So I would like to share with you two aspects. One, what we do at ISB for the full-time students, those who are doing full-time studies at our school, and also what we do for working executives, because both are important. One is skilling, other is reskilling. So one of the things we do is at ISB, we attach a lot of importance when it comes to curriculum on three aspects. One is innovation, engagement, and impact. So we continually actually upgrade our curriculum. So there is a lot of innovation that goes into our curriculum, and often these are based on data and research. So our curriculum is very up to date. And as I mentioned to you, we have realized that even traditional functions are getting disrupted with technology. So if you're talking about consulting, a consulting company doesn't come and hire just for traditional consulting knowledge, but they expect you to have technology enablement being bundled with your offering and knowledge. So that's one aspect. That's for the full-time student. So when you look at executives from industry, what we have realized that people from industry do not have time to come and go through a full-time course. So we have made an attempt to come out with curriculum, which actually, for example, we've got a program which is run by our Global Manufacturing Institute in collaboration with MIT. So there we talk about, in the context of fourth industrial revolution, what kind of skills managers should acquire, which is a mix of both, the management aspect, the software aspect, the technical aspects. We actually talk about what is that managers today need to know in the context of fourth industrial revolution. And a lot of things are very, very different. Yeah, over to you, Sujata.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Chandan. Ramesh, is your microphone problem resolved?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Okay, yeah, great, we can hear you. Okay.
You may not see me. I am not very sure. Let me do it.
Yeah, I'm not able to see you, but it's good that we can hear you. I think that is more important, that we can hear you, right? Yeah. So my question to you is, you mentioned about the operator, being the most important. So I take it that what you meant was the shop floor, grassroots level people, operators, supervisors. They are the ones who are very crucial for this IIoT initiatives. So how do you prepare them for this change? Because this must be a really big change for them. So how do you prepare them for this?
Yeah, actually, before launching this massive program for the digital IoT, entire initiative comes under the digital transformation for Tata Steel. Okay. And during the initial phase, when we started this, we launched a program called Marvel. Okay, and this program basically takes into the people from the grassroots level to the managerial level. Because assumption is even the manager, operation manager, and above, who are basically part of the manufacturing, they never been to the exercise of the IoT, Industry 4.0, digital transformation, etc. So they all were given the training. It was a very extensive training of 3-4 months, a certification program, which we did across the locations. And people enrolled, took the certificate, and they were very proudly put the wherever he sits. So see the interaction he has got with the program and the proud he feels having lots of things through which he can interact with the IT people. Because as you mentioned earlier, that IT and the shop floor, where the used to be the two world, and when you enter the shop floor, you feel like you are an alien, because people don't entertain you as an IT guy, and IT guy do not know what's happening on the shop floor, apart from few systems which he has kept over there, right? So, but that's the way, both the world talk to each other, and then the common consensus start building up, and there was some cultural change also developed through that trigger, which we started initially, and that basically helped us a lot to talk to the people. Even today, when we start a project and the squad which we make, we give the first priority to the people who are coming from my shop floor. They are the one who basically have a say in the use cases, what is the pain point they have, what is the data readiness they have, because he knows much better than me. Yeah. So more you interact to the grassroots level, the more comfortable the journey will become. Cloud, big data, AI, BI, everything else can be taken care of. But if you do not connect with the people, machine at the bottom, what produces the result, then I think most of the time it becomes very, very difficult.
Yeah, thank you. I think these are very, very critical thoughts that you shared, and every manufacturing organization should keep this in mind, that you have to have a participative process for the grassroots people, right? That is what basically you are talking about. Take their views into account, take their experience into account, and make them stakeholders in the whole process, and not just push some system on them and make them, hate that system. Even though the system might be good, they will not appreciate it, or they will not take it. Now we are running out of time. So before we go to the Q&A for the audience, I would like to do a very fast or a rapid fire round, which all of you, and I would request you to give a single line answer for the questions which I'm going to give you. So I will start with Ajay and then go one by one. So please name a single change occurring in following departments due to Industry 4.0. For you can pick any role in that department and name a single change occurring in that department. So the production department, Ajay.
Now in production, there's a data engineer.
Okay.
Again, there was no role.
Right. Maintenance, Ramesh.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, name a single change that is occurring in this department with respect to the Industry 4.0, with respect to people in this department. So what is the big change in maintenance department due to Industry 4.0?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So in maintenance, we have implemented something very close to the predicts. So this is called the predictive maintenance, the suite, which can basically, plug into any machines, and it will tell you when the machine will go into the anomalous zone, malfunction.
Okay. Now Sunil, over to you. What change you think will occur in a system integrator with respect to who is to be primarily automation system integrator with respect to Industry 4.0?
So Sujata, the telecom industry has gone through a metamorphosis the last few years, and we are moving from a hardware-centric world to a software-centric world. So a lot of the network functions are now getting virtualized, which means that you're using a lot more commodity hardware and moving all the software functions onto the cloud. So there are a lot more jobs now that are created in software. So the whole control and orchestration is done through software now. So we are actually recruiting a lot more people in software engineering and software. So to summarize, networks are getting virtualized. We're moving from a hardware-centric world to a software-centric world. Sujata.
Okay, so thanks for this information. I think a lot of people are not very aware of what are these changes happening in telecom industry. So people out there can think about careers in telecom, which are software-centric careers. Dr. Chandan, same question to you. What is the change that you are seeing in companies which come for campus interviews in ISB?
I think the major change is understanding of technology and appreciation of data-driven decision making. I think these two are very important.
Okay. Okay, so thanks a lot, everybody. Now we will take a few questions from the audience. There were few questions already sent, and I am going to start with one of those. So what are the career opportunities in R&D labs worldwide, as well as in India, with respect to Industry 4.0? And any of the panelists are welcome to take this question. Opportunities in R&D labs, or in general in research and development, with respect to Industry 4.0.
So, let me just share with you, I think as far as R&D is concerned, if you take life sciences, the concept of virtual drug discovery is becoming important, and traceability is becoming important. So for this, you would actually need Industry 4.0 technology.
Okay. Okay. Then there is a question from one of the audience. How have digital transformation roadmaps changed due to COVID? So maybe Ajay and Ramesh both can take this question. Is there any change in your digital transformation roadmap due to the COVID pandemic?
Yes, yes. This is pretty much actually, this will disrupt your all the effort which you have put earlier. Because Industry 4.0, we have built lots of AI-based system, and as you know that all the machine learning and deep learning based system, it learns from your existing system, historical data. And when the system has not seen the COVID earlier, it has started responding in a very weird way. And when the COVID came, then basically we had the thousands of the model deployed. I mean, hundreds of models deployed across the locations, and all of them, and the production capacity drops to almost 50% of some of the plants. And this kind of the situations and the reactions and the data, the model has not seen before. So any model also needs some time to adapt to the physical changes which happens in the process. And during that process, it takes at least 1 month or some time by the time you collect the data in those typical scenarios. And by the time you collect the data, so those are the time when basically people expect you to respond in a very natural way, but the way the entire system is crafted, built, developed, and deployed, it needs the data from that extraordinary time. So maybe now we are ready for those kind of the situation. If anything happens again, when I will go down to 50% of my plant capacity, and maybe the 50% of my current workforce to run the plant, because most of the people are infected and can't come to the plant, then I have those data. But when we actually slipped into that situations, it was basically a very challenging, and it took us some time to come back.
Okay, interesting. Ajay, what is your experience on this?
So yeah, I mean, COVID is a good trigger for us. We any which way we're working on our digital transformation landscape, especially for us. As you said, digital transformation encompassed right from my manufacturing to retail. So we basically touched upon everything. That what kind of for us in automotive, how can we implement things like product configurator? In commercial vehicle, basically all these vehicles are customized. People can actually, large fleet operators can customize their platforms and vehicles. So how can we marry that with our manufacturing line? Manufacturing line should be ready to take such changes, because all these changes can have a ripple effect on the various other activities. So all these things we got accelerated. So there was a very good impetus, and a lot of the projects which were in ideation stage actually got into delivery stage. So that's a visible thing which we could definitely see.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I think we have completely run out of time, and there are a lot of questions, but we won't be able to take them live right now in this session. All these questions will be directed to the interchange platform, which the organizers will share with all of you, or they have already shared on the chat. And these questions will be answered on that platform. So all of you will get answers to the questions which you want to ask. But right now we have to wrap up this session. I would like to thank very much all the panelists, Ajay, Ramesh, Sunil, and Dr. Chandan. Thank you very much for sharing your views and being a excellent panelist. And thanks everybody. We generally kept to the timelines quite well. So thanks to all of you for being, particular about that. And thanks to �CINGX and DigiCon series organizers for giving us this opportunity. And I hope we have been able to give back or fulfill the expectations from the delegates about this session. I hand it over to Nitya. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Tilak. Thank you, panelists, for taking out time to share with us your experience and learnings. It has indeed been an insightful session. I request the audience to take a moment to complete the poll to provide feedback on today's session and share your ideas for future ones. Your feedback is extremely important for us to bring more and more such sessions to you. Details on joining the Interchange platform for deeper discussions is on your screens right now and will also be a part of the email that you will receive after this session. I encourage you to join and engage with the like-minded community. Look out for details on upcoming sessions on IIoT India website and social media pages. Do not forget to join our Interchange community for continuing the conversation and dialogue spinning off from today's session. Once again, thank you for joining us. We hope you found it useful. We look forward to seeing you in Interchange after this session and having you at future sessions. Do not forget to submit your poll. Thank you, take care, and have a good day ahead.